This conference will now be recorded.
He's coming from another meeting directly to this one, so
Okay,
he's planning on being here. He might be a few minutes late though.
okay. We will call the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee meeting to order at 3:31. Roll call, please, Susie.
Leroy Bolt is excused. Dale Schmidt,
Here.
Tracy Kluge,
Here.
Annette Ovinger,
Here.
Kyle Jabot,
Here.
and Jessica Atkinson is excused.
And let's stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, a motion for action on the agenda. Maybe we could keep pushing the agenda item for Doug back if he doesn't get here in time. And just play it by ear. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay.
Fine with me.
Okay, so I need a motion, I guess, to approve the agenda with the option to keep pushing Doug's agenda item back if he's not.
So moved.
Yeah, I'll second.
Moved in second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, action on the minutes from the July 12th, 2021 meeting. Any changes, any comments on the minutes, anybody? Then welcome a motion to approve.
I'll motion
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Comments from the public, I don't believe there is any public here, so we will go ahead from there. Item 7 is site plan review. Harold, is there anything to report?
There were a couple of things that came up. The Bohemian developer, I'm thinking, is it Elmwood Way? I'm not sober, older, are putting a second building, and I asked that there be inside bike parking. And then Aaron pointed out, or he talked to the owners and said, there will be underground bike parking. He said bike capsules, which I think is something like a little closet. And he said they do have underground parking in the first building for bikes. I rode through there, actually, I was out biking and I biked through there, and there was somebody had a bike on a balcony, and I thought, there should be some other parking. And Aaron said that there is some inside parking. The other one that came up, and it was going to be discussed this week, and it was moved back, is 2300 Cormier Road or 9th Street. It's the property across from Nativity. And there's going to be a Mission Grill in there, a proposed Mission Grill. They withdrew their site plan, and I guess are changing it, but the plan does include a sidewalk.
Yeah, they're gonna knock that whole complex down, start from scratch.
Is that the one where, which side of the road is it?
Big and tall.
Oh, big and tall, okay, oh, that would be nice.
Yeah, the whole thing's going down.
Oh.
And they would start from scratch.
And so that's one thing we wanted for a long time, is that sidewalk that really is a missing piece. So,
Yes, that is the missing piece right there. Well, we need to get it to on the old San Luis property.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
So it's all, it'll eventually, that's up for sale too.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So there was a proposal 6 months ago or so to turn that into some type of residential. There are going to be some studio apartments and some bigger ones. And it looks like it's for sale. And was that not approved, or?
I'll defer to our village manager for where we are with that.
Yeah, no, that particular project was never, that transaction never was completed.
Okay.
But we are working with a current developer for the possibility of redeveloping that site. Don't have anything concrete yet. They're still kind of running through some numbers to see how we can make it work financially.
Okay.
But at some point, our hope is to redevelop that site.
Yeah, because that looks like a nice little development, and then nothing ever happened.
Was that the St. John's deal?
That was the St. John's.
Yeah.
Original. Right now, we're working with a private developer. Likely, the intent or the goal is to try to put some senior type of housing there. So kind of more of a continuum of care type facility where you have assisted living to maybe, or senior housing to assisted living to more of a memory care type establishment. Like you see, I think they have a similar facility in Howard, there's one in Hobart. It kind of pops up now in most communities.
Be a good location, actually.
So is Mission Grill, is that all that will be on that site or is it remote?
No, it looks like there's gonna be like 5 buildings.
It's another mini mall.
Oh, minimum, okay. Any other ones, Kyle, anything else to report? No. Joel, is there anything for site plan that you have that you would want to share or?
No, the only thing tied to that is, that former Big and Tall shop, or was it an Orc vacuum or something to that effect? Kind of more parking dominated. This revised site plan meets the current zoning requirements where the storefronts are basically pushed up against the setback of Oneida Street, so that it's going to look more kind of downtown-ish, if you will, versus more parking dominated. Parking will be in the rear with more accessibility for pedestrians.
Hey there.
We don't have to move. So anything else on site plan, otherwise we'll move on. Okay. Next is action items. The first one is signalized intersection analysis review. Like it right on
Give it a minute to check it out. Which meeting is this called?
Thank you. What's before you this afternoon is strictly the summary. Now, if you remember, this dates back to February this year. A lot of discussion of our signalized intersections, what we wanted to do at the signalized intersections in terms of a summary of what is existing out there. Started out as, I'll call it a smaller scope. It grew after everybody had a chance to look at it a little bit further. Develop the spreadsheets for each intersection, different components of ADA compatibility, what's out there, what isn't out there. Pictures and a summary in spreadsheet form. That wrapped up, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago. Got the summary completed, and that's what I provided you today. It's strictly just the summary. This is informational at this point. What I would like to do is get this possibly to you, Tracy, the summary, and then there is a Excel spreadsheet that has each of the intersections logged through there with a complete breakdown of what is at each of the intersections. That's the background data that supports this summary. From our tour in June, we went to the intersection over at Oneida and Morris, and there was some general discussion as to what do we see as important, what locations should have. I take one step back, forgive me, the brain is catching up. The initial discussion was getting access to the push buttons in all the areas. When we met out there, that discussion changed a little bit to, well, in certain areas it may be more important to have not only push buttons accessible, but moved to areas closer to the intersection. The changes in doing so, adding sidewalk to get to a location versus moving the ped buttons is a pretty sizable cost difference. So that means that might not happen, but once a budget season, once every other budget season, depending on what the board approves on budgets for that. Does that make sense so far? I don't know what I'm explaining. So the talk was from that meeting, and I think I summarized that at the top, is the assumptions were kind of the entertainment district, if you will, the area north of Cormier was the area where, okay, those intersections, there would be costs pulled together for moving those ped buttons closer instead of extending the sidewalk to them. they'd be pulling those ped buttons and basically doing a redo of the intersection signal wise to make that work better. Benefit of that is you're bringing it up to the current ADA code, not that the intersections out there are non-compliant, they're grandfathered in because they were compliant at the time of construction. But that adds cost to your project. You're going to have to budget for that and have it approved. We had some other intersections that required lesser ones, and those were the ones that low hanging fruit, I think I called them, that we were going to tackle, try and tackle this fall. We got 4 of those. I think those are mentioned in there that we're working on this fall.
So to clarify that, then Doug, the 4 that you are talking about, are they the ones that are listed? It would be starting with number 18, 19, 20, 21. Are those the ones that you're talking about? Okay.
Yes.
So those will be done in 2021. So those will be done this year.
The aim is for 2021.
Okay.
If they aren't, they'll be done spring of 22.
Okay.
And the only reason I say that, I mentioned it a little bit at staff this morning, is concrete work. You've heard it in news, you've heard it in all the trades, the lack of availability. We have under contract, we do some work ourselves, we also have a contractor under contract who's doing our mill pave work, our curb work associated with our roof surface. Normally they're done right now, and we're in full scale paving mode right now. Right now, out of our 12 streets, 3 are paved. They're starting on the curb on the other 9. They'll be working on that well into August, probably into September. No fault of their own, strictly manpower staffing related. I got that work on their schedule, but I'm also not going to pour concrete in freezing temperatures and have it fail. So I'm putting that caveat out there. Not that I'm saying I'm shelving it. What I'm saying is it's on the list. Priority wise, I have to get our road work in first, and then I've got them coming in to do this work following thereafter.
So what is your budget for 2021 for just specifically for the intersection stuff? And if you can't get it done this year, I would assume we would try to carry it over to 2022.
This work is under we have a sidewalk maintenance budget.
Okay.
And it's part of that. That's a budget that we have each year.
Okay.
And it's part of that work.
How much do you budget each year for that? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't.
So it's not something that was special this year just for intersections that you had budgeted in anticipation that you wanted to start picking out some of the intersections. It was just part of
Correct.
this.
No, this discussion came about early this year, and it was, well, we have some monies that we can
Okay.
try and assist with this on, and that's what we're attempting to do.
Okay.
So if it doesn't happen, we have that same fund next year.
So in the future, because we've done all this work, will it be easier for you to say, okay, I know what I want to do in 2022, these 3 intersections, I know the cost for them would be this, or I'm anticipating the cost to be this, and this, and then budget for that accordingly so that you know that you can hit those intersections? Is that what you're going to do with this information in the future to try to?
Correct. This will be broken out separately. This is a new expenditure that would be put in under that budget. There's also, over the course of the past year, there's been requests for, I'm getting off topic here a little bit, but this is a good time to have this discussion. There's a request from the Ponderosa neighborhood, if you will, of a crossing across Packerland Drive to be able to get from the Ponderosa Carroll Lane neighborhood across Packerland Drive to the trail on the other side. Another project out there potentially. There's a number of those projects that have been requested over the past year that I've been keeping tabs on. We have yet to have our budget kickoff meeting, but though, just like any other department, there are a lot of requests from a lot of sources for projects. Some of those will be submitted as part of this year's budget. Some may be just by sheer volume because there's other projects that need to get done. This work that you see here, the one that we've been working on this year, would be part of this year's budget submittal and turned in for review. I have yet to make all the list, to be honest with you. I was just starting, and if you happen to notice our work area down there, we had storm last week that we ended up working on carpet removal and all that kind of good stuff. That all got set to the side. I was hoping to have a little bit more pulled together, just a summary of all the different projects that have been requested by various members of the committee throughout the year. Those have all been, I've got those all written down. Those will all be written up as part of the budget process. That's something I have to have a discussion with Joel and Greg and Mary on, just how many get submitted at one time. There's, as everybody knows, there's a certain amount of funding, and creating additional budget documents for the sake of creating them, if they're going, if we have a limited amount of resources.
Yeah.
I hope you can understand that.
Yeah.
That keeps summarized, that will be summarized, but some of those may just have to wait. in
So
time.
just so I understand, and for example, you have these four intersections that you're gonna do. Do you have like just a budget for sidewalk maintenance, and you take out of that as projects come up? Or do you list your budget and say, I'm gonna do, so this one is gonna cost this much and this much? Or do you just sort of use the money until it's gone?
What we have each year on our entire sidewalk system, each summer, we actually drive our sidewalk system, mark out sections that we want to do. And so we have a rolling average, if you will, of how much we spend each year on that. We also have some requests that will come in from time to time, and that's what we use in developing that sidewalk budget each year. So this would be part of the, what I just mentioned was some of the requests. These are pretty small in nature and low in cost, so it isn't that big of a deal. If this was 200 feet of sidewalk, that would be a bigger deal. This is pretty minimal amounts. It's strictly just getting it coordinated and done where the issue comes in. So that's just like we have a curb and gutter budget also. That's for areas where the curb settles or settles dramatically at some point in time, and you have a big pond in the area. If we're able to fix that in a year, again, we have a handful of those that happen each year. We'll go out and do so. There are some years, to be quite honest with you, yes, where all of a sudden you have more than you anticipated. Well, that gets bumped to the following year. We have that list and we continue to work on that. And we modify the budget.
So does your budget then start over every year annually? So
Yes.
that money is, if this wasn't spent in this year's budget, it may be in next year's budget. It depends on the money now that's been budgeted for 2022.
The budgets stay pretty similar each year. So that as you have projects, you don't typically have a lot of them hanging out there year to year. You generally are able to get them caught up.
But if for some reason you have money left over, that doesn't carry into the next year, does it?
Well, you
So
could,
such thing as money
right.
left over.
Yeah, I
It
think
can be.
if
It's
it's
I'm just,
Doug's budget, it's part of his operating budget to a large extent. So the operating budget is funded through the general fund. The general fund is that big pot of money that all taxpayers contribute to. At the end of a fiscal period, if monies are unspent because, let's say, a project came in under budget or whatnot, then that funding gets kind of reallocated then on the next fiscal year. And so you may take it as fund balance, so remaining funds from the prior year, and it might get reallocated to give Jeremy a big raise, let's say, or
Right.
somebody else, right, Jeremy?
So
It gets reallocated, or it doesn't stay. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to stay within that line item.
that's kind of what I always thought. His example of he's not gonna pour concrete if it gets too cold would mean there's unspent money. That wouldn't necessarily stay with his department. It could go, it goes back into the general fund.
And it could.
It could, but it doesn't necessarily.
But it requires a direct action then by the board to take that unspent monies and reserve it for
Yeah,
that
yeah.
purpose.
Yeah, but it doesn't automatically, he doesn't get the, it's not like, well, I didn't spend it. So it's not in a piggy bank in your office that you can spend next month. So, yeah, no, that's what I want.
and where I think I understand your question, where that comes into play is, let's say we had approved for this year Morris and Oneida, and we had $35,000 budgeted to do that. And let's say Brown County Highway says, electrician just isn't going to get there. He's not going to get the wires run for that intersection. That's a large project that next year's budget, I don't have $35,000 in my budget for that. That was budgeted for this year. We've got to work something out. It's going to take time. It's going to go into next year. So village board, here's the parameters that we have. Here's why it isn't going to happen. It wouldn't be put as part of the 22 budget. It would be it'd be carried over, but it would be an action, like Joel mentioned, it'd be an action saying, okay.
Right. And that's what I thought.
Similar to a vehicle purchase. We've had years where some vehicles end up taking 12 months. We just approved a garbage truck a couple months ago. Luckily, that one was in stock. All the other manufacturers said it was 12 to 18 months. The village board would approve it still. That expenditure may not happen until the middle of 2022, but it was approved, it was budgeted, it was taken care of. Same thing would be on a larger scale project like that. On the onesie, twosie type items, I'll call it, the sidewalk, a few cakes of sidewalk, that's of a small enough nature that in the sidewalk budget, the odds are that it's going to fit and mesh just fine with the other stuff that we find throughout the years, similar to curb and gutter, in that there's generally a little bit of leeway where we can make these smaller type items work out just fine. It's the bigger ticket ones when you get into the
Right. No, I understand. That's kind of that's kind of the way I thought it worked. So
no, there's no piggy bank, unfortunately. You can check my entire office. You're going to find $1.76 sitting in the desk, and that's what it's so far. So to circle back, this isn't the end of the discussion on this topic. This is more so the summary of where we are at. And what I'd like to do is, like I said, I'd like to get the background information that comes with this. I was going to get that to you, Tracy, since you're the head of the committee, just to look at and then parse it out to everybody if you see fit. I mean, seeing the summary, I'm sure it makes a lot of sense, but just to see some pictures to go along with it can help sometimes.
So,
but it is a lot of information, and that's before just unleashing that all on you. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have that discussion here, and then we can, because there isn't anything under the gun here to make a full-fisted decision immediately. This is the information and getting it out to everybody else.
Do you prioritize it then, Doug, as far as what you think needs to be done?
Yes, I did based off of what we discussed at the tour. If you change the parameters to that, that would change some of
We
those
could have a
rankings.
discussion on that.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
But in the grand scheme of things, when you look at it from a budget standpoint or a dollar and cents standpoint, let's say there's one in here for $30,000 for intersection A. If you change the parameters and say, yeah, we want intersection B done now, if it's approved through the budget, the dollar amount.
May not fit.
Well, and most of the ones that need that work are somewhat close in nature that it would be interchangeable.
Okay.
But
So really for this year, with depending on the concrete and the availability of concrete, you would look at doing the 4 that are listed here, the ones at Holmgren Way, at Mike McCarthy, at Glenrock Terrace, Hanson Road, and Lombardi. Those are the 4 that you're looking at trying to take care of this year.
and then there's 200 construction that we just haven't gotten back to look at. Those I think are in good shape, but I wanted to get back.
Okay, so those are the orange ones that you marked on here. Okay, all right. So,
Yeah, anybody that's worked with anybody understands what you're going through. And we ordered a fence and I got the permit to put it up. That was in March. Yeah. They still have it.
It's a
And they don't know if they're going to manufacture it this year.
strangest year that I've seen in the past year, employee wise. The work is, they're pumping out work left and right. The work didn't slow down during the past year and a half, but the workforce has, and that's not politics, that's just boots on the ground, folks doing work. And
wonder if it's with the baby boomer generation too, so many people retiring and now.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
more people
So that's-
retiring that are coming up through the ranks, to even fill spots like that.
I'm getting way off topic here, but you're absolutely correct. I apologize. One of the other meetings earlier today was on the Green Bay Water Commission, and they're down, they're down 4 spots for utility workers repairing water breaks. They do their own water breaks, things of that nature. They're down 4 operators because the contractors are offering between $60 and $70 an hour to work for them because they have so much work. Now, you hear that, you go, well, absolutely, I'd jump at that chance. The thing is once those projects are done, what happens? Who's low person on the totem pole?
Yeah.
Well, what happens? There's the stability factor versus really being able to make money. And right now, there's that jump because there's the opportunity to make some good money right now. There's a definite slug of baby boomers, and believe it or not, Gen X is only.
Now be recorded.
Nice entrance, Leroy.
What am I doing?
I don't know, you're making a lot of noise. Looks like you're in it twice.
Long story short, there's just a number of factors leading into that. Gen X is the next, so that's my generation. That's 1970, 19.
It looked
80 or
Gen
something
Z,
like that.
Gen X.
Yeah.
It's the next generation.
Millennials.
It's the next generation after yours.
Well, I'm pretty old, maybe 2
Oh, I
generations,
think
but
you
2 generations.
might even be a millennial. I don't know. I don't want to say. But it's that next generation up. It's the next generation after yours. And that actually is actually in the next 5 to 7 years is the next.
And the tough part about that is you got a minority supporting a majority.
The millennials actually.
And they got a little money to spend, so they want to go do things. And there's nobody there to support them to go
There
do
was
them.
the group doing the study. The millennials are actually the same size as baby boomers. The Gen X generation between is much lower. So you're absolutely correct. There's this valley that we have to go through to try and get through.
Therein lies inflation because it's supply and demand no matter what you do in life. So employees are in the driver's seat.
So like I said, if that's acceptable, Tracy, I'll be getting pretty major file sent over your way to review just how you'd like to see it dispersed. You can get back to me and then we can work that.
Well, and I think, obviously you're the expert on this. You need to make the decision on what is the most important to do. We can certainly look at it and see things that we, may think too, but I think we're really looking for your expertise and knowledge on it as well. And I'm glad that you did that. You got 4 intersections and we're getting started on them and, I
To
think.
share it with us so that we
Yeah,
understand.
Absolutely, yeah, send it
That's
to me and then we'll get it out, yeah. And I
If you-
think
if
this
you-
will help you in the future when you're budgeting, because something like you said, some of these intersections are $40,000. And you'll know, okay, in 2023, I know I can't put Holmgren and whatever off any longer, I gotta do that, so then you have to budget. So I think this information will help you as we move forward and get things done and trying to take care of some of this stuff.
The biggest thing I'd be looking from the group is parameter change. If you don't feel some of those assumptions at the top I listed, if you don't agree with those, or you want to see those changed, that's what I would ask for as you look through it. It's just, hey, I don't agree with that.
So really 1 through 14 for us to look at that and say, the ones that you have in the yellow on the top is what you're thinking, because those you're saying no immediate action is needed.
Because those are compliant now, right?
No,
No, I'm
this
sorry.
is note 1 and note 2.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Note 1 mainly. By all means, you can look through all of the rankings, absolutely, but they're based off of, they're based off of, or the ranking of them is based off of note 1.
Okay.
And if you say, no, I don't like that at all, change it to this, that will change the rankings.
So you've kind of ranked them so we can do as many as we can, as soon as we can. And if we said, no, we don't want to do these 5, we want to do that one, that's what you need us to tell you.
There's only a handful of them that are cheap. And you get to the bottom here, they are pricey. And that, as everybody knows, budget-wise.
Right, no. So that's what you're asking us to tell you. Do we want to do the cheap ones now and do the other ones when we can? Or are we gonna just put all our money in one and let the other ones?
That note 1, if we'll use the intersection by Mary's place as an example. Originally, we were viewing that as it's compliant when it was constructed. Let's get some sidewalk sections to the push buttons. When we met out there and reviewed it, it was, no, let's get, this one's important enough. We got to move everything. We got to pull everything towards the intersection, push buttons close to the intersection. So that's got to happen, no matter the cost. That's okay. That comes with a much larger price tag than putting the sidewalk in. If that's still the assumptions you want used, that's okay. With the understanding that that cost increase means budget-wise, it'll have to be prioritized, or it'll have to wait just like any other project. So if it is, well, we're okay with anything north of Mike McCarthy, those are the ones we want to have the signals relocated and everything. Well, that changes some of the ranking because you're putting more of them into the easier category, if you will, or less expensive category. That's kind of what I just want to, right now we're going Cormier North, I think it was. Forgive me, I didn't go in from you.
Yeah, come from your.
That's the assumption that I'd just like you to think about and review and get back to safety.
So do we,
Can I ask a quick question, Doug? On behind each of the listings, it has like VV or VC. I'm assuming that's village, county, or VV is village, village. Intersection is out those, and then maybe county, state, and.
Yep. Yeah, those are more so just for
Who has
my knowledge and jurisdiction. Sidewalks in general are the local community's responsibility, but State Trunk Highway 172 at Babcock, the crossings there. That's crossing a state highway. There's a lot more involved in going with that. There's been discussions where they have some work planned in that corridor in the future, so I have to get that information from them. It will take longer just by the nature of the jurisdiction to deal with. Working with Brown County, not an issue. It's pretty cut and dry. It's the community's responsibility. We have a good working relationship with them to get the permits and things like that. It's not a big deal. The state ones are the ones, it's more so just so I remember to circle back with.
So if the state comes in and said, we're doing 172 and we're doing that in 2025, then we're doing 2025, is that it?
That would be my recommendation because it would be done as part of their project. And then you're getting free, if you will, improvements. It's still a tax somewhere down the line, but at least it's not being funded through the village. And the state on those projects, as they start designing them, the communities that they're being done in are brought them both in to discuss them. And that's one area, as all of you know, I'm not saying anything new here, over the past 10 years has changed quite dramatically, has been the multimodal access and how they do that during designs. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it is from what it was to what it is now is starkly different.
Any other questions on that? Otherwise, Doug will get me the whole document, and then we will get that out to everybody for you to peruse it. And then Doug will work on the 4 that we talked about to try to get those done this year with construction, if they can get it done.
do we need to put this on the agenda at some time in the future to review? I mean,
If you want to prioritize them, so you want to put it on the next one and just
Yeah.
at least start that talk.
I mean, we have a starting point, but I think,
Yeah.
I don't want to leave it
Do
live.
you like Doug's prioritization or do you want to switch them? So that,
Right.
to me, that,
Yeah.
we don't want to hold off on that. We want
Do we
to.
have to motion to do that, or can you just do it?
I'll put it on the next agenda.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. That was very informative. me.
Any other questions on anybody? All right, so we'll go on to 8D, discussion and possible action on village trail clearing request. And before we get in there, I wanted to thank Bill and Kyle and also Jessica, who doesn't have to be here, for doing the presentation. You guys did a great job. Appreciate it.
It was good, everybody was there, and that was nice of you.
Don't you have 2 sets?
You too, Leroy.
Just, oh yeah, Leroy was there too. I'm sorry, Leroy.
Sure.
Could you, with this agenda item, and maybe Joe can help with this too, but could you address how we came up with the 25 to 3,000 per mile, what that was based upon, and how comfortable or uncomfortable you are with that number, and how we go about maybe trying to finalize it, or not finalize, but get maybe a better estimate that you're more comfortable with? So if you, because it seemed at the meeting that you weren't real comfortable with that number anymore, maybe I just read into it.
I didn't really have anything to say at the meeting about it. It was more so along the lines of, there were some, I think a couple of trustees had questions on it. But to answer your question, how that number was calculated, when this all started out, it was, can you get us some type of ballpark number as to what we're looking at? So what we took was our labor costs and our depreciation cost of our equipment that we used for clearing sidewalks in a 3-year period. Okay, so we took 3 years worth of our sidewalk clearing costs, labor, materials, salt.
Okay.
Not on roads, strictly our job centers for sidewalks.
Okay.
And we put that total. Pretty soon, we're gonna start clicking the big red X on somebody out there.
Put some oil on your mouse.
So we took those numbers and converted that total cost for the lane miles
Of the trail.
of sidewalk that we do.
Okay.
So that gets a rough $1 per sidewalk, $1 per foot or $1 per mile of sidewalk clearing, just to give some type of, idea of what's out there. Now, what goes into that, and I think that's what some of the questions on the board was, is if you're clearing along a trail, let's use Packerline as an example. Packerline Trail, just like the sidewalk along Oneida Street, what's the level of service you're looking to use? And there was the lady in the audience who comes from the apartments and wants to use Packerline. The level of service, in the contract or in the discussion, it was 2 inches or more. That level of service may be fine for somebody, but for this lady may not. Well, that's what that level of service comes with an additional cost that is not reflected. What I gave you was strictly a back of the envelope. Here's roughly what it costs for us for sidewalk, and then there were discussions that happened through the course of a number of months there. And I don't know if there was additional contact made with Brown County in terms of how they cleared the sidewalks or the trail, how that happened. So that was the nature of that cost.
Does the cost make a difference if it's right away or 3 days later? Because we had said if you clear the sidewalks 3 days later, just so they're cleared. We talked about that. Jamie was late in the audience, and she didn't want it sooner than that. So your cost, that doesn't change, whether it's right away or 3 days later.
Our costs, we're out there as soon as we can after a storm on the sidewalk system. So right after we're done plowing the streets, we're following behind so that we're not clearing sidewalks and plowing back over them and coming back through. You may experience a little bit of that. Everybody knows the county comes back through and clears roadways multiple times after a snow. There may be repeat clearings on the same trail system after the same storm, or the trail systems are predominantly located in the southern portion of the village where you have maybe a little less wind blockage of houses and things of that nature, where you have snow blowing over sections of the side of trail. Are they to be re-cleared? Those are the types of things I think you just want to take into consideration as to the level of service you want provided.
I think the other issue I see, Doug, is, so when I looked at this and took notes when we were at the meeting is, Jay's correct, there's a pole on every end of the path when you go through the industrial park trail. But the other piece is, if you contract, which is our intent, right? Because we don't have the manpower to do it. That contractor has to move from trail to trail. It's not like, so to use the trail, right, on the east side of the river is not good because he hops on there and he goes. Here we gotta jump from one trail. Now, a lot of the trails they could continue, right? Because you can go down Packland, you can go down Waddy. You can take a bunch of that, yep, you can do Sand Acres. But then the one over by, is it Argani? So now you gotta load your equipment back up. So are we gonna get estimates from a contractor? Is that,
Well,
I mean, you did this thing from.
Well, this is just from Brown, this is exactly, this Fox River Trail, I just got it from Matt Creasy. So,
Yep.
and you're right, I mean, maybe we're not comparing apples to apples because it's a slightly different thing, but just to give an idea of them clearing 6 miles of trail, they contracted it out starting in 2017. So they have 3 years of cost there, including sand, salt when needed, and plowing. So you can see the numbers from 7,100 to 13,000, and you get heavy snow here. So just, just to give an idea, then Matt also sent along his RFP that they put together for the clearing of the trail and what they used and when they got the cost. And they've had the same company, Apple Valley, has done it forever, for all the years that they've done it. So it was just something that I thought might help if we're wanting, to get some quotes or something. So I guess that's the question. What do we need to get a number that we can feel comfortable with as we go through the budget process? What do we need to go out for quotes? Do we need just, is Doug's estimate on it okay? Is there another estimate or what, I guess, where do we go from here to get a cost that we're comfortable with and that we can say, okay, this is what we think.
I don't think the estimate that we went to the board with is satisfying them. I think they want some numbers from a quote, is what I heard from Jay.
Yeah, that was my understanding too. They, they just want to see some figures from an actual contractor, someone who might potentially do the work.
Yeah.
So I guess we need to, if we want to use this or want to document, we want to go to the contractor to give a quote. They're going to say, well, what do you want done? So we have,
So we have to
that's
decide
the
what
level
we
of
want
service
done.
part.
I think the level of service that you're looking to have done.
What are our expectations? And the contractor will say, I can do it, and here's what I can do it for.
Right. Even things, I mean, it sounds silly, but it takes the contractor time, and that's going to meet cost is when other lots clear their snow and there are little windrows going across the trail, is he or she expected to come back and clear that off. If the trail jogs along some of those trails, they make jogs. The first snow of the year, once you plow it once, you have the windrows and the banks to go off of. He's gonna have to go out and stake the trail so he knows where to go the first snowfall. If he doesn't know where to go,
Once it blows over.
he's going to want to do that because if it's in the contract that he has to repair anything that damages in terms of grass, either it's going to be put in there, you have to stake it out, and the village is going to cover the damages, or you cover the damages and he's going to elevate his cost to cover it. So it's those types of things you want to think through. And I have personal discussion, so if I'm repeating stuff or I apologize. That's just in terms of that snow clearing. That's what those are the types of questions that the contractor may come back and ask you and just say, okay, what am I responsible for? And I have them to breeze through the Brown County one, and they have some of that listed in there.
Yeah.
But it's more so just the Brown County trail is much more of a straight shot than some of our trails are. So it's just making sure the contractor knows what he or she is bidding on, just to try and give as much of that.
And I guess sort of, we don't know what we don't know, so it's good that you can tell us, here's the things that you need to include, because I would have never thought about staking it out. And it makes so much sense.
And again, it's that level of service we heard at the meeting. for most of us, that level of service would be good with the 2 inches, but if somebody else says that that might not be, is that the level of service you want to provide or not?
Yeah.
And that's a tough, I mean, that's a tough decision because you can see both sides of it, but it's at least so you have it to the contractor saying, here's what we expect, or after a snow, we're expecting you to return if there, or it's an hourly rate to come back if, sections of it will closed and you're expecting it to be clear all the time. He's going to say, well, then I'm going to have to be able to come back after wind events or things of that nature, or in the spring when it melts, Packerland, if you go on Packerland in the spring, when that melts, all those fields are shutting water across the trail and onto Packerland. That ice is up every night and melts each morning. Is there an expectation level there that it's to be salted on a routine basis after that? Those are the drivers that are going to also bump your costs up, as you can well imagine. So it's just determining, here are the factors, and here's what we're looking to get the cost.
Does the village allow volunteerism to go and work? Let's say a volunteer want to put those stakes in the ground for that operator to know his path. Is that allowed, or is there some insurance issue, or is there?
I think it's doable. I don't know that we'll find many takers per se, but at the end of the day, that we will have to decide whether we're going to be responsible for the repair of sod damages or the contractor is. I don't know that that is going to be your biggest driver of cost either. So I think your biggest thing is going to be your responsiveness post-event, the volume of snow accumulation prior to service, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
if it's 1 inch, 2 inches, and again, that responsiveness, if it's 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours post-incident,
Time and depth.
timing and depth are going to be your biggest thing. And then the amount of return service that is necessary between events. Those are, in my opinion, going to be your largest budget.
Yeah, you're right. It may not be a snowball, but it could be a wind.
So the Fox River Trail is plowed with a 5-yard truck. Okay, with a plow on it.
If you plow or they, nothing makes.
I'm not sure.
It doesn't make
Can't get into that many details. So it's plowed by a 5-yard truck with a plow on it. In most cases, it works. However, there have been multiple snows where it hasn't worked, or they've had to get a different vehicle with a snow blower on front and actually snow blow it off for the heavier snows. And they said sometimes there's been a couple on top of that hasn't even worked, where they've actually then they've had to use a payloader and use that to get the snow off the trail. The payloader is also used on ice buildups where snow has frozen quickly in place.
Sure.
But the plows cannot
Can't push it.
break through, and they have to get a payloader to actually break that apart and to go through. Now, Fox River Trail is a 14-foot trail. Most of our trails are 10-foot trails. I'm assuming they're constructed in the same way. Most of our trails are a foot deep with 2.5 to 3 inches of asphalt on top, foot gravel underneath, for support of those larger vehicles. And it's just as an FYI, they use sand with minimal salt added into the sand to keep the sand from freezing in the wintertime. And they use sand just because of the damage that potentially occurs, because so much of the Fox River Trail is behind homes that have very well manicured lawns, and the salt would wreak havoc basically on a lot of individual pieces of property. So that's why I got some of the same information when I called Matt last week. He said he'd already gotten it to you. Yeah, both they use sand to minimize the salt damage with just a little bit of salt mixed in to keep the sand from freezing into a big block. So whether that helps.
What's the possibility of bringing these people may be so busy they don't want a part of this, but bringing them in here to have a discussion. Sure.
They being who?
You mean Apple Valley?
Apple Valley.
So I talked with Jerry this morning. Jerry's the owner and he's the one who actually
Apple Valley.
plows the trail. So tell me what he said to call him whenever there were questions. I can ask.
Well, we can either create our correct questions and give them to you, or
I think-
just have them prepared and learn from him, but maybe it's easier for him if we
Yeah, so
just
that's
put it
just-
together and then you have the discussion with him, rather than him having to take his time.
I called him multiple times last week. He got me this morning on my cell phone and I was happy to talk to him. Yeah,
I think
I'm
he's a
gonna
great
guess-
resource, and if you have that type of a relationship with him already. He may not be the guy that can do it, but I think, I can tell you, my ears heard, we need some estimates, not your estimate. We need somebody quoting this.
So then my question is, and Jerry said he'd be willing to bid on it, because I posed the question, if the village board moved forward on doing it, would you be interested in bidding? He said, we would probably bid on something like that. But I'm sure, like what we just talked about, he's gonna want parameters. Are we talking every trail? Or are we talking, do you wanna pick a couple of trails? Because that's gonna take time for him to go out there and probably walk or drive the trail to see what challenges there are on that trail to come up with an estimate. So he's gonna wanna know that before anything. And quite honestly, I hesitate, we work with him on a couple of projects right now. I hesitate to ask him to give us a price for all 5 trails, and have him go out and do all that work and then not even go out to bid on it. You know what I mean? So I don't know if we want to use 1 or 2 as an example
Oh, I see.
and compare to what our costs are type of a thing, or what our potential, sidewalk clearing costs are, to see if we're in the same ballpark or not. I'd be careful of asking him to do everything and then not do anything with it, because that's not a real good
No, it could.
relationship.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah, I agree. I think you get your parameters set as to what you're looking for, and then take a couple of samples for him to go, just budget numbers on.
Yeah.
Take a Packerland or a Wabi and the industrial park trail along the creek. Those are 2 different
Very
types of
different,
trails, but
Or
those
the
are,
marina trail.
Yeah.
but those are ones that would have
I
2
think
different
Pac-Man
kinds
or
of.
the marina trail.
Yeah.
To me, those are the 2 extremes.
Well, we could do that. Okay, so we have them look at the 2 trails. So the parameters that we set already when we put this together was the trails will be cleared between 48 and 72 hours. So is that what we're comfortable with? Is that what
Well,
we
I
want to
think
know?
we would need to ask, does that affect the quote? Does that affect your bid? He may say, yeah, it might save you 10% to wait 24 hours.
His profitability is with all the private contracts that he has with different businesses. And the way he does the Fox River Trail is he gets rid of all the other individual business parking lots, and every place that he's got, he does those first, and then they wind up with the Fox River Trail. But he said in most instances, unless it's a real dumper, that they can get that done in around 24 hours. So if we're looking at 24 to 36 hours afterwards, I think that would certainly work. Well, it would work for him, but obviously, I don't know, we'd be looking at multiple quotes and getting other places
Yeah,
as
you're
well.
right.
Yeah.
So,
But the trail work is not going to be as profitable as the private lot. So we're going to need to make sure we give them enough of a window if we go out for quotes to.
no, and I'm good with that. I think that's reasonable for us and reasonable for us to get quotes, to get bids. If we give them some flexibility, more people would be willing to bid.
They're giving them 48 hours here.
So that would be my recommendation. Is we have a range for the board, I would set the time frame.
Okay.
So not a range. So if it's 72 hours, it's within 72 hours, not within 48 to 72 hours.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Okay, so we're saying we want to get a quote from Apple Valley, which hopefully gracious
Or
enough to do it,
others.
and just to get a number
Yeah,
though.
just
We're
a
not going out to
number.
everybody else. We're just gonna go to Apple Valley to get at least a number that hopefully the village board would be okay with, would feel that it was
a good quality number. So we're gonna say within 48 hours, has to be cleared, we're gonna just get a quote for a couple of trails, for just to get a number. So we're gonna say, the one on Ashwaubenon Creek Trail,
May River Trail.
Ashwaubenon River Trail, and Packerland. Is that what we're saying?
I can call him and see if we can.
So my question to Doug and Joel then is, what do you guys think about getting it just for two, or is the village board gonna say, well, you just got quotes for 2 trails, we have no idea how that applies to all the other trails? You know what I mean? That's my fear.
Well,
about
but
No, I think you take the, you're gonna get $1 per foot or.
No, I know.
And you're gonna multiply that. all
Right.
Nothing's gonna be as bad as the Packerland Trail, so.
Right.
Whatever, you're gonna get a breakdown of the mileage, basically, well, it would take $10,000 to do that, or
Right.
whatever it would be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then you'd be able to break that down per mile, and it shouldn't be any more than that for any of the other trails, because Packerland's gonna be the toughest one to do.
Right. No, and I know you can just figure it out that way.
And
but
we'll have a number for the river trail too, and so hopefully the river trail is gonna come in at less per. Or do you think he would just say it's gonna be so much a mile?
I'm not sure. I did ask him how, because there are a couple of businesses that cross the trail, as well as some roadways on the Fox River Trail. And he said that Brown County typically has sent a letter to those businesses or owners or whatever, that they're responsible to do the side clearing. That he doesn't go back and redo it because other places have plowed after him. That's what Jerry has told me.
That's what Matt had said to me too.
So whether or not we choose to do that or go down that road, obviously some people won't like that, and then if they don't take care of it, then we've got enforcement that needs to be done, and that takes time and effort. So I mean, it's all a snowball, whatever we decide to do, but that's how Brown County handles it. But again, they don't have that many crossings of the Fox River Trail. Not nearly as many as we would on like a Packerland or a Wabi, or even Sand Acres with all the homes on that.
Yeah.
I think it would be sufficient to get 1 or 2 quotes. I think by going out and trying to get quotes for all of the locations, it can create kind of an unfair bidding environment.
Right, that's what I was thinking too.
You might not get accurate numbers then, if they're just kind of giving us a ballpark figure for 1 or 2.
Because they don't want their number known by everybody.
Right, still gives them opportunities to competitively quote.
Going back to the level of service, there are sidewalks in the village that the property owners are responsible for plowing. Is that correct? Does the village have a standard that they have to achieve, or do we just say you have to plow and keep the snow off?
We tell them there's a certain time frame that they have to get cleared. After that, if you get adjusting the snow the next night, is the village going out and actively looking that if there's a ½ inch or an inch on the sidewalk, are we going out actively looking for those sidewalks to get redone? No, not unless there's a call or email or complaint on it. They're just process-wise.
And that's fine. I guess my point is, I would like to see the same standard applied to this as maybe the sidewalks, because people are gonna be walking here. If the village has determined, if you are walking past Cabela's, here's what Cabela's needs to do to make it safe. That's kind of what we should apply to these. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But as Rex said, that another one of the little unforeseen items there then is the code enforcement and of it. That will be something that will have to be learned along the way, not how to code enforce it. We have part-time code enforcement. So the circle back time, and that's why I'm giving you a little bit of a circular answer is there is.
We'd have a difficult time enforcing it if we ever have.
Yes, no, I understand that.
So I can tell you though, so I'm on property in Howard, I can tell you how they enforce it. You send me a letter. If my tenants haven't moved that snow, the next time that we get a call, we will, again, that's on you because now you gotta send people out there, but I forget what they charge me per hour. It's just like $50 an hour or something like that to clear that sidewalk. And simple, to put on my taxes if I don't pay it. It's no different than a water bill.
Okay, well, how long of a window do they allow you to remove that snow once?
I don't know, because it's always been taken care of once I have a discussion. I send a letter off to the tenant and I say, you know, this is gonna be your responsibility because obviously I have security deposit, right? If I get it again and they do enforce it, you're paying it, not me. So I've never had to deal with it. So I can't really answer your
I
question.
think what Doug might think, what we might be concerned about as a village is we send that letter. I mean, it's gonna take a while, you know, at least a couple of days. You know what? They're not clearing their trail or their sidewalk. We need to send them a letter. So get the letter sent. That's gonna take a couple of days, you know, through the mail system. So now you're 4 or 5 days after the snow before that person gets the letter, and you can't say, do it tonight. You've got 3 or 4 days to get it cleared. So now you've got 4 days plus, let's say, another 4 days. So, you know, then what do you do if they still, you know, I mean, so then you've got to get it scheduled to get it cleared. So that could be a couple more days. So it could literally be easily, you know,
So
2 weeks after snowfall if someone is.
But the letter only comes once.
Oh, yeah.
I get the letter once,
Yep.
and the next time, if they get a call, they're doing it and they're charging me what they stated on that letter. There is no, I'm gonna send you a second letter.
Well, I'm not saying there is. It's just to get someone out there, code
Yeah.
enforcement officer, and then you get the ball rolling and then.
Right. Oh,
Then it's
Don't
still
disagree.
no,
Yep,
still
not
no
simple.
answer. It would probably be 2 to 3 weeks after the fact to actually have a contractor clear that sidewalk to go through that method.
Little different process, just Howard in general, on all their codes, not just sidewalk. Howard on all their codes is very aggressive in what they do. So the village of Ashwaubenon historically has been much more working with the people to
more
get
lenient.
compliance, to get compliance. With that comes some timing issues. If you are aggressive, you're going to get complaints quicker because you're hitting them with fines or costs quickly thereafter. The villages are out there looking for compliance through action, so the village has tended to go that route. Again, not just on sidewalks, on code.
Signs.
So just a,
Okay, so I get all that, but to me, we're trying to have it pass cleaned, and I'm not gonna let some business that doesn't clear it out stop us from moving forward with what we want to do. We'll have to deal with that when we come to it, right? Whether that's enforcement or we go have a nice communication with them to say, I mean, sometimes it's hard for me because you think they'd want to be responsible enough. Some of those people are using that to get to their facilities. Right, whether it's a McDonald's or what have you, but
I would say,
maybe not in winter.
I would say pick the 2 most important trails, and I got the impression from the board that they aren't gonna give us money for all the trails, but they may try 1, they may try 2. So if we give them the 2, that is our highest priority. You don't think so? I think it's all or nothing with them. I don't think it's all or nothing with them. I think it's like,
I think it's gonna come down to how much money is available.
yeah, and if they're, and I would say pick the 2 best ones and then go from there. Because I just,
Because we're gonna ask for it all, and we're gonna tell the board, look, just to save everybody's time, we got 2 samples. We got the 2 extremes. Packer land is the most expensive, and we got the other one, both ends of the village. So here's what the contractor said it will cost to plow these. So these trails are, out of the 10 miles, these trails are 6 miles.
I can just see one trustee, you were there, who's adamant against it, period.
Well, but we don't have
I
to.
sat next to you.
We don't have to get all the trustees to agree.
Yeah, that's true. We have to get some, get some to agree, because I can see some disagree.
Well, that's fine. I doubt that there are many things where the trustees vote unanimously. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking disagreement. I mean, Tracy doesn't always agree with everybody else.
Heck, no.
She's been the minority opinion, I'm
I know,
sure, so.
yes. Yeah.
I think it's to us, we go in there, we say, you know, just respectful of everybody's time. Here's what we did. We applied these standards. Here's what it's gonna cost per mile. You know, if we extrapolate that out, it's gonna cost you this much for the winter. If the board feels that's good, you know, we can get firmer numbers if you want, if you know. And to me, if they're at that point telling us to get firmer numbers, that looked pretty good for us. You know, when they said, well, why don't you just get us some actual quotes? To me, I was optimistic because they didn't say, yeah, we're not doing this. They seemed willing, and
I've talked to a couple of them after, and there's some people that are positive about it, there's some that aren't, and that's, we all have opinions, and that's why you have more than one person.
Yeah, exactly.
Based on my notes, I took, Mary has an issue with, whether the Oneidas would have an issue with us on Packland for some reason, I don't know
I don't know why.
that was, and then the whole park section on Packland. Allison, I didn't hear a lot of issues there, but I would say she's got a priority area because she's got, where you're putting the bridge over, I mean, those people down there, you've got not only the apartments, you got the hotel and you got the condominiums. So that's an important piece. You have the majority of the trails in the past.
Yeah.
Chris Zerbel was very positive with, because he had some experience. Jay wants numbers,
Yeah.
and I think rightfully so. You brought up a great point. Steve, I have a hard time when you go back and say we did this all these years back when we built this, but that's my opinion, not his. Because life has changed. You always change. You have to update. But again, I respect his opinion. And then of course we got you then, and you're all against it, so.
Yeah, totally.
But that's personally what I heard from everybody. And those are the things, to be honest with you,
No, okay, thank you.
I was a little uncomfortable that with my experience with cones that I wasn't more prepared for rejections. I went back to my days and I'm like, boy, Dale, you really, we blew it, because we should have been prepared for things that we might have known that would have been rejections. And we weren't, and that's okay, because we get a second opportunity. But you don't always get a second opportunity.
Well, I think that was.
That was the big thing.
was
We
the
thought we had
cost.
the numbers, and
Yes.
we wanted more specific
Yeah.
Right.
numbers. So I think we had, it was, I would speak because everybody else spoke so well, but I think it was done very well. They got the point, and I think everybody's.
But I do agree with him, because Jay is right. Those
Yeah.
aren't for sure numbers. Those aren't really from somebody saying I have to do this.
I never felt this was gonna be our one shot. I thought that, you know, we needed to get it for them. We needed to get it as part of the budget discussion, and that's what we did. So I think we accomplished that. You know, they're thinking about it, they're considering it. You know, when they go to put the budget together, it'll be part of the budget, whether they agree to do it or not. You know, there's lots of things, you know, they have limited amount of money, and what are they gonna spend it on?
Did they say what?
Tracy,
They didn't say.
can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Leroy.
Okay, I have a question on when the plow goes down Packerland, which way is he going to plow the snow? Is it gonna be out into Packerland, or is it going to be into the businesses?
Well, you can't dump it in Packer, you can't dump it on the road, for one thing, that, you know, no one can do that, that's illegal. So.
Right.
it would be
So
either
has-
or between on either side, I would imagine, because in some of those spaces, there is grass space between the trail and Packerland Drive.
So, yeah, I think.
Okay, so what's gonna happen to all the businesses when the snow is being plowed into their driveways?
Well, they're clearing their driveways, they're responsible for clearing their driveways, and they'll clear them, and we'll go through and some might get on there again, but I'm sure it'll all work out. This has not been not done before,
I think that's part of the conversation as it relates to kind of level of service, which I think we're still kind of working through a little bit. So a couple of things with that, obviously, we need to have a better gauge on that. If that section of trail is one that we want to go out and get quotes for, especially in that northern section where we have those abutting businesses, we're going to want to identify, is that going to be the contractor's responsibility as part of their service contract with us to ensure that as they plow through or clear the snow of the trail, that they do clear the snow in addition to that within the driveway apron or egresses for the businesses. If no, we're going to want to note that in the specifications because that means the contractor gets to take a straight shot right down and they don't have to worry about any of the cleanup effects after they've done their main clearing. If that is a component, we're going to want to identify that because now they have to take their clear shot and then they have to come back and do the cleanup efforts.
I will say it's going to be interesting along that north part of Packerland because, I'll just use Wisniewski Auto and some of those businesses. The trail and parking lot are discerned by a painted line.
Right. And that was my other point is we're going to have to decide what we're going to do with snow storage.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to just plow it into their lot because then they use their lot.
Right.
So that has to be removed in a different way in front of some of those businesses.
And that will be costly, so we'll have to kind of bear that in mind. But I think Leroy, you're right. I think we got to kind of decide what we're going to do on that northern section in particular, because that level of service is going to be different than maybe through some of the other areas. So I think what they have from Brown County that each of you should have a copy of is a good baseline.
Absolutely.
Now, it's maybe a little bit of plug and play, right? So Brown County, they're saying as soon as there's at least 1 inch of accumulation, they're going to provide service. That service is going to happen within 48 hours of an event. Is 1 inch our threshold or is 2 inch our threshold? You guys will want to give us that feedback. We had a range of 48 to 72 hours. I think it's ideal to think 72 because now we're dealing with situations where we may be prolonging that time frame. But at 72 hours, now you're getting into repeat events over the course of a 72-hour period. So let's say on Monday we have a snow event, we give them 72 hours. Wednesday or Thursday we get another snow event, they get another 72 hours, and now we have let's say we got 6 inches on Monday and now 8 inches on Thursday. Now we have accumulation of 14 inches. Is that the level of service you want to achieve? So a lot of times that 72-hour span can be problematic too. So just kind of bear that in mind. Obviously the sand salt thing, we can address that. But then it comes down to how do you want to handle cleanup snow storage as well. So those are the numbers that I think we as staff are going to need from the committee as what the expectations are so that we can go back to that contractor and get a fair price. Do you agree, Rex?
And this budget, did they say this was gonna come out, or is it just,
We haven't been discussed that administrative level.
so,
Well, it kind of would come out of the village budget.
Yeah.
The village would say, we're gonna give,
Probably Public Works.
we're gonna give this department this much money for cleaning it, so.
So we have a line item specifically for winter and maintenance activities for sidewalks currently for the safe routes to school. My initial inclination is that additional funding to support this effort would fall into that line item. But at the end of the day, it's an operating expense that the general fund has to absorb. And so that's going to result in some type of either a service reduction somewhere else to match the expenditures that we're going to be increasing this account by, or some other revenue source or tax increase to support that. So we either have to find a cut in operating somewhere else or corresponding revenue to offset the expense. The other thing I wanted to mention in here that I thought was important is that Now, there, Rex had mentioned, I think the trail is 14 feet in width. The contractor under these specifications needs to maintain at least 8 feet of that. Now, they can maintain more, but 8 feet is the minimum. That is another component that will come into, I think, importance for the cost, because that will dictate the type of equipment they use. So if you go to, let's say, a 5-foot minimum, now you open up a whole different can of opportunities for contractors based on the equipment.
What's the minimum they have on sidewalks now? They used to have, because we used to have a sidewalk where in front of the business,
Typically sidewalks are 4 feet.
pardon me,
Typically,
4 feet. Because they used to have a different, because I know we had to clear off all they just plowed it and we had to do the side, the snow on either side. But they had one equipment, then about 2 years before I sold it, got a new piece of equipment. And that was much different and it was wider. So was that 4 feet or wider? Because it was wide enough to walk the sidewalks, it would be wide enough for the trail. I'm just wondering if it was 3 feet, 4 feet, or 5 feet for the sidewalks. I don't know.
Rex, do you know on our equipment that we currently use for the sidewalks, what is the?
It's something different, it's something they drive.
The trackless and McLean fit our sidewalks. I mean, there's no extra spot. I mean,
Is it
it's
4
a
feet?
one pass thing. So
Is
I'm
it 4
guessing
feet?
it's a 4 foot lower. I'm guessing.
So,
5 foot would be plenty wide then for the trails because it was pretty wide before for the sidewalks.
Well, it depends on what you're using the trail for. I mean, part of the trail thing is to have 2 people
Okay.
passing, multiple
Okay.
users in 2 different directions. And not that sidewalk isn't meant that way, but if you're doing it in the winter, I'm going to guess most places will use a blade either on a pickup truck or a little bit larger truck.
So-
And those are typically going to be between 6 and 8 feet.
So what you're saying is a sidewalk is different than a trail as far as figuring that out.
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, question answered, thank you.
So I guess, we obviously need to get a cost sometime in the near future. So we need to give some stipulations to Rex. So we've agreed 48 hours is good. Have we agreed 2 inches? 2 inches or more they have to plow? Is that something, that's what we had in our original? In Brown counties, it's 1 inch. So would you have any feel for that? You guys want to stay with 2, go to 1? Just so, again, to
Well-
give Rex some,
Yeah, I don't
criteria.
even know what the 2 inches, I mean, he's going to give us a cost of plowing. And whether it's 2 inches or 4 inches, I don't know if that's going to make a difference.
he had in here,
You know what I mean? He's just going to, his time is his time,
right?
Yeah, we can decide.
so.
Well, I think the difference between 1 and 2 inches might, if you get 1 inch of snow, he doesn't have to come out.
He's gonna have to have a minimum.
But
because
he's
they're
not
gonna-
going to try and estimate, it doesn't matter, he's not going to try and estimate how many.
Yeah, so I guess that
Just
matters
needs
the
to know
total
what he's
cost.
So if someone else needs to deal with the weather service and figure out, okay, how many 2-inch snowfalls have we had on average per year over the last 5 years? And then whatever the cost is that whoever we get the estimate or estimates from,
He's gonna get the cost.
then we're going to multiply that by the average amount of times people have gone out, and, for if you settle on 2 inch. So we don't need to give him a
Right.
1 inch or 2 inch. We just need to know, hey, whatever we have depth wise, what are you going to charge us for this?
We have to let him know that you will have to travel from one spot to the next stone. What's his cost for travel time?
We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
He'll figure that out.
But
And
your
then-
point is well taken, and Leroy's is because this actually happens even at Pioneer School, when I run and walk the sidewalk there in the winter. So it depends who gets there first. If they do the sidewalk and then they do the fire station driveway, you have to jump over snow this deep. So your point is well taken with up there, with those places that may clean before we get through there, or before he gets through there, and now he just dumped that snow into the driveway.
The other thing is, do we have to consider the width, like 5 feet versus 8 feet? Because that would be maybe a different piece of equipment. Would he figure that out, Rex, or we have to say that? How wide we want it to be cleared?
But I think to Rex's point, it's gonna cost him a lot less money to be able to do the truck with a blade on the front. And to go with a snowblower type or a small,
Yeah,
like,
as much as I know.
like the village does, that's time consuming for that vehicle to go down the road versus.
He's gonna factor in
will.
his person power, right, his time and material. So he's gonna figure out how much it costs to staff a vehicle or a piece of equipment, and then what the hourly, well, and what the hourly rate is for a particular piece of equipment.
But just
So
say how wide the trail's gonna be.
it will.
Yeah.
Because he's gonna wanna figure, he's gonna wanna know, can I get this done in one pass, or do I need to come back the same way and doing a second pass? And so that's gonna be time, so.
So that's why he's
if he
gonna
has
look
an
at it.
eight- I'm guessing he has an 8-foot blade, so I'd probably say if you wanna just make it cheap.
Yep.
You say it needs to be an 8-foot pass.
Yep.
Okay.
So
So I
the
don't know
average
that. He won't
width
know
of a plow in the front of a truck.
Which quite honestly will minimize the amount of turf damage.
Yeah.
You know, you have, because
To
you've
the
got,
trail edge.
yeah, you won't get right to the trail edge and be cutting through all the grass or the bumps that you might have.
Then, was there something that we said about ice and going back for ice? Is that their
Well,
responsibility?
could you
or
talk to me
ours?
about salt and sand, like what he would estimate it costs to do salt and sand? I don't know. He would give you that like per time. I don't know. Kind of like they have on Brown counties, he gave a quote on plowing up to so many inches salt sand, how much
So-
per event.
So that's gonna come into play more in the spring when you get melting that freezes. You know, that's, he's not gonna come out because we haven't had a snow event. But do we want him to come out to salt? Not to salt, to sand. Are we gonna ask him to do that, or are we just gonna just
I would
clear
say-
snow?
Well, and there is gonna be times when he probably is gonna have to salt and
I
sand,
would say.
Oh, I would.
you know,
Yeah,
because
probably he will.
it's the reality of it, and it's like, is it,
I mean, he's been working with Fox River Trail. He'll know
He'll
when
know.
it needs to be done.
yeah, he'll know, he'll keep track of that stuff and he'll know, and, you know, so. Okay, so Rex, are you comfortable with the feedback you have to be able to get a quote from him? That you
It
think,
needs to be done within 48 hours. I
Yeah.
doubt if, because I guessed some of the questions we may have today when I was talking to him, and I tried to get ahead of that. So I don't think he's gonna be having an issue with 48 hours. He asked me, what's the width of your trails? And I said, well, they're 10 feet. So I'll talk with him about the 8-foot requirement, and then I'll just ask him, you know, in addition to the plowing, what is the additional cost for salting, sanding per time that would need to be done?
And you said he doesn't actually clear after, let's say he blows the snow into a business's driveway. He doesn't, somebody else comes back and clears that. He doesn't do that, right?
He has very little of that he needs to worry about.
Yeah.
So that's additional conversation I need to have with him, because he might
Yeah.
need to use multiple pieces of equipment for some of those places up on Packerland, if that's a trail that is done.
Yeah. Where he has to pull out of his straightforward and move it up the bank on both sides.
Yeah. Literally, like Wisniewski Auto, we would have to plow it into the street and then take a payloader and lift it from the street into a truck and move it somewhere else. Because there's nowhere to dump that, along that stretch with those businesses. All the Oneida Nation has their businesses there, those parking lots run right into the trail, like the trail is part of their parking lot. Same with, well, obviously the auto store and a couple of the others on that stretch. That's gonna be an expensive stretch.
So
But that's good, because it won't get any more expensive with that. That'll, that's the extreme, the high and the low. And that's what we want to present
Reinforce
to
the
the board, where
security.
everything, all the other trails are gonna be somewhere in between.
yeah, but we need to know that.
Yeah.
We need to know that, and maybe the village says, the board says, no, that's too expensive, we can't do that. Then we settle for other trails being plowed, it's like the discussion we have with Doug. We can do these four, or we can do this one. Because there's a limited funds so.
I think I've got some basic numbers to just give them a call and see what we can do. I'm happy to drive it with them or whatever, just to talk about some of the different issues. So.
So you mentioned, that snow there. I think the county is used to just pushing all that snow onto our trail. So how's the county gonna feel about that? Or they say, we've always done it, we're doing it again?
That's the way they're gonna do it.
Okay.
You literally need to wait until the county has cleared Packer land before the trail is cleared.
Okay,
Otherwise, it'll be a black hole cost-wise.
Yeah.
All right, anything else, Rex? You feel comfortable with reaching out? We feel that if we can get quote from them, that could be sufficient to take to village board through the budget process. That's what we're saying.
I would say so the Hobart issues, Mary's still gonna bring that up. So what, we can't change that, right? Hobart said they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna clear that section that they have, right?
That's my understanding from Mary, yes.
So then
I
village
think
board.
Jolie talked to the administrator there too as well, didn't she?
So the village board will need to decide if we just plow the Ashwaubenon sections of the trail or if we plow the whole thing.
Or maybe we stop before we get all that expensive area up there.
or we tell Hobart it's so much a mile and you have, whatever, half a mile, quarter mile.
They have a mile, close to a mile, I think, 8/10 or something like that, don't they? Somewhere around there.
Is that Sidwalk station in Ashwaubenon or Hobart? Because that's the one that Jamie was
It's
concerned
not
about. because
Ashwaubenon.
She was in the, I think she's in the apartments.
She's the Oneida Nation one, the one on the corner of Boggy.
Well, she goes to the
That's the
Oneida
one
Nation,
she
that's the one
goes
she
to.
goes to.
She's in the apartments out by
But
the.
yeah,
By the sports
Hockey.
I know,
complex.
yeah, I know the apartments, I didn't know which one she went.
Yeah, she goes to the Oneida Nation.
not the Sidwalk.
Yes, so that's one south of the
So
lobby.
we're not, is that Hobart?
That's all Ashwaubenon. The part that Hobart is north of there.
Immediately north, so that street, so that corner, that intersection, north
They have
to,
two.
I don't know, like it's Schwann's.
I was just thinking which ones, yeah.
Maybe roughly around by Schwann's.
Is Ashwaubenon, then it's Hobart.
Yeah, that's all Hobart.
That's all
no,
Hobart,
that's
that whole
section of
stretch.
Hobart.
The United is Ashwaubenon.
Different Dave's Appliance,
Dave's Appliance.
going back to where the street goes to the west.
Okay,
Is,
that's Hobart.
I mean, it's not, it is Hobart.
Yeah.
But what was the issue? And I still don't get the issue with you and Knight. I know you talked to the state or something about the letter, but you were sending, or you sent them something or called them. But I don't think there was any
Don't
issue.
know if there's any issues with them on it. Mary is just wanting to make sure that the United don't have the concern.
Oh, the United
Because
themselves.
it's still their property and they gave us the ability to put the trail down there by giving us, that easement. But it was never talked about plowing it, so maybe it won't even be an issue
Yeah,
type of thing. But Mary just feels it's important to ask them first rather than just doing it.
All right.
get more people in the wind from Schneider across the street going into the place. No.
All right, anything else on that topic, you guys? Otherwise, I think Rex has what he needs and we'll support and then we'll
Try,
go from there and we
Yeah,
you get it
appreciate all that
next-
hard work.
next meeting, bring it back or whatever to part of the budget process. Update the committee on it too. All right, anything else? Otherwise, we will go on to 8C, review and possible action on the 2018 budget, 2018 plan project list. We have on that.
I think the only thing we've had from the past is if you go on that week, there's a number of them that don't have status or recommendations. And it's 5 o'clock, so I'm not saying we necessarily do that now, but I think the goal was to fill those in. They're on the very last page. I think those
Oh, yeah.
are the only ones that are blank, and some of them can probably be filled in pretty quick with knowledge. Well, I take it back, there's some before that too. My mistake. There actually are some before that. Even on page 1, there's one for Ashland Avenue. We may know the answers to these, I don't know. We can attempt to go through these, or we can move it to the next meeting. This has been going on for some time. We did add, Rex wanted to, a motion to put the Highland Estates in there. It looks like my box is in there.
Yeah.
So we did add that at the bottom, 2021-14 on the last page. And that's what we want to continue to do, so we track it and capture it. But I guess the question would be, do we want to try and do some of these, or do we all want to take this home and fill in what we know and have it for the next meeting?
I think some of these were, far down the road things we'd like to see, and we didn't put a time in.
I mean, a lot of the ones that do not have a status or a recommendation at this point are all really current ones that we just put on there. So, if you look at what the notes are on it, that tells you a lot about what that project is and what's happening with it. So there maybe isn't an update or status at this point. This is like getting it on there, saying this is what we're trying to do. And it's so new that, to have a status or recommendation at this point maybe isn't possible. You have when it was recommended, and a lot of these, the ones that are empty are from early this year.
I know the Sheriff Forest one is in project, number 9.
Yeah.
In progress.
Yeah.
So one.
And on the last page, there is one, like the first one without a status is sidewalk panel extensions near existing push buttons. Well, that's what Doug was doing.
Yeah.
You can just put, you can leave it, or we could put survey in progress or survey being completed.
Yeah.
And then, whether that's going to do anything.
Well, so if you look at 2019-5, it says in progress, expected completion in 2020. We don't have an expected completion date for dogs, right? It's gonna
But
be
it could
ongoing.
ongoing or in progress, or as budget allows.
Well, accessibility. See, and that's done. That's the piece that's done. From Ashland to
Which one are we talking about? Tracy?
2019-5, Vanderpeer Way. So that's one you were just mentioning.
I was on,
In progress, expected completion in 2020. So that one is completed.
Yep.
That's just
so
updated.
that's, I guess that's what we need to do, is not just have the spreadsheet updated once in a while.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, okay, completed in 2020, it is completed.
Yeah.
So
Well, and maybe easiest way would be maybe to Rex, just go through them and see if there's any update you can make on them, and then bring it back to the next meeting again. If there's, obviously, like you said, Short Forest is gonna get done, there's different ones that are taken care of. And then we can just look at it again.
Sure.
Next meeting.
yeah, Rex is willing to do, I know he did a lot of them the last time for us.
Yeah.
Need something to do, Rex, or
That's
Always got
cut
one
my
still.
lawn, or?
Hey.
Yeah, there's another one, Brookwood Drive, north side. Isn't that in the Packers thing?
Correct.
2021.
The sidewalk is not in yet, though. They're waiting for the other stuff. So,
Waiting on Packers, right?
is that what you want to put, waiting on Packard?
Waiting on Titletown or something. Let's not put waiting on.
Waiting on development.
Yeah.
That's what we're waiting on.
Which one was that?
2021-5, Brookwood Drive.
Okay.
We didn't want to put a sidewalk in while there's still a lot of construction going on. It's good to win the sidewalk. All right, yeah, we can probably fill in about half a dozen of them.
Okay. Sounds great, thank you. All right, anything else on that? Otherwise, we will move on to department reports.
Anything else anything you want to touch on this?
Contractors meeting tomorrow with Peters Concrete for the West Main Avenue Trail. Same story as before. It's all about staffing and crews. There's not enough crews out there, so the project is kind of languishing right now. Normally, we have a contractors meeting fairly quickly after the award is given, and it's been a month. No contractors meeting, but we're having one tomorrow. But it's still a ways out, still this year, hopefully, that work is being done. The Ashwaubenon River Trail, if you had happened to drive down Broadway, you would have seen the barge last week, taking samples in the riverbed to find out where the bedrock is in the water, which will determine how and how deep the pilings need to go for the pier, for the bridge, I should say, across the creek. And they also have done soil samples for Alden Station and Ashwaubenon. So having, that report probably will take a few weeks to generate and get back to us. So that's what's happening there. Sherwood Forest, it's been brushed out. We installed 2 culverts. We probably will level those out a little bit more this week with all the rain. Everything settled, so we know where our little issues are. Trios will be coming in this week. That's the contractor that's cutting down all the ash trees in the village. They'll be removing a couple more ash trees that are easily within the fall zone of the trail. And then if not at the end of the week, then next week, we plan on going in there, starting crushed gravel installation from the far bridges eastward to Shady. And then sometime in September, early September is when custom manufacturing is looking at putting in the boardwalk. That was not going to happen until late October, but apparently their crews are stuck up in northern, the UP somewhere, and they want to get the heck out. And so they're pulling them out for a while to do other projects because so they apparently this is one of the ones they'll be doing in September. That's it. I mean, for me, it's just the same projects, just
That bridge is
slowly moving along.
I have a vision, probably just because of all of those, that we have the food trucks and all that stuff on a Thursday night. Now you can draw all those people from that area, whether they could be in the hotel if we advertise enough, right? Or they're able to get it. That's one thing I did notice is even when I went on our website for the village, we say maps, but we really don't specifically say trails and paths. You have to go to the maps to see them. It's for visitors. It's in 2 different places, but it's also under visitors. And I think there's things we could change there too, to get people that come to visit us to know our village better and use it. Maybe, I don't know. Because we have a nice website. I mean, we really do.
Yeah.
Anyways, it'd be nice, all of a sudden you see all these people congregating, wanting to be a part of it. We got Aspen Avenue. It'd be nice if there's another way we could get past from here to get there, but that's not going to be simple. No easy way. So.
All right, state DOT, we don't have a rep for that. Jeff, I don't believe is here. Nope, oh Jeff. The schools, no rep for the schools, and Willow is also not available today. So we will go into public comment. Anybody have any comment on biking or walking in the community that is sitting in this room, or Leroy?
Man, I took my dog for a walk because it's walking after Tiger Town, and they opened up, it was fenced.
The new park.
Oh my gosh. And there's just more seating, but then they have steps going up where you can sit around, and then you see the buildings. It was just something different. You know, I could see it Madison or New York or something, yes, it was very interesting.
Yeah, but creating a community.
It was interesting.
Smart.
And they tore down the house that the Cargill family.
Which one was that? Which one was that?
That old brick monument that they had there.
On
On
Brookwood?
Brookwood, there was that one remaining house that would never sell.
And they actually just built that monument, I mean, literally 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, I almost wonder if, so that's gone now?
That's gone. A couple of weeks
I'm
ago,
almost wondering
about
if-
the same time they opened those condos. Imagine that.
I almost wonder if they built that and spent like $20,000 or $30,000 to gain another $60,000. Because I mean, you could easily say in your negotiations, I just spent $30,000, I'm not selling.
Yeah.
And, unless you give me an extra 60,
Sure.
that type of thing.
Is there a parking lot there now?
Yeah, that's part of the parking.
Because I think I drove by and saw. I think
Because
I
there's
saw-
that one
They
house
did a
that's
lot of
six.
I mean, that was just done a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And he knew what was going on.
He was real good. He was real good, wasn't he? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the lady with the duplex on Oneida and Barney there in the corner. Right, is you would go north, right in the
Okay.
corner, 1,000,003. They're on state. She's flying a man.
One comment on, I'm gonna public comment. The county has been sweeping Broadway to the glass between Hanson and Pilgrim Way, so it's been really good. I've been in touch with Dean when there's been days that it's been off, but I've gone through there, so if anybody else sees days, please reach out to Dean and let him know, because they'll keep on top of their, doing it at least twice, if not 3 times a week, they're out there sweeping. The one problem area we have yet is Hanson Road coming from Ashland Avenue to Broadway, because the trucks come across the tracks, of course, it all gets churned out,
Yep.
everything gets all over. So that bike lane on the south side of Hanson is literally, you can't bike in it because it has so much glass and so much debris in it that's been dumped. So I talked to Dean about that, and he's concerned because none of his guys have a CDL to drive that street sweeper. So he's concerned about them going down there and turning and coming back around again. And then evidently in the budget, the county budget for next year, Dean is putting in a smaller sweeper, like more of a, residential isn't a good term for it, but a smaller sweeper.
Parking lot sweeper.
Yes. So he's concerned again about them coming out to Hanson and being that close to Ashland Avenue, turning around and going back through. So I don't know if the village sweeps that normally. Because I know they do Hanson Road, the other piece from, on the west side of Ashland, it seems like they get that because that one stays pretty clean. But I guess just to look into that section and see if the village can hit that a little bit more, or if the village is hitting it at all, or what the status of that is. Is that piece, and it's really the south side of the road that's the worst. The north side doesn't seem as bad because they must be coming maybe with the trucks empty or not coming back that way or something. But it's something that we'll have to really think about because everything else seems like it's pretty clean now, and that spot is really bad yet. So, and I don't know, like I said, who's doing it, if the village does do that sometimes, or if they do not, I'm not sure. They do that, so.
You don't think you can get the railroad to fix the tracks?
The railroad did fix them a couple years ago. but
They're bad.
Still bad. They're still pretty bumpy. They're good for a little bit. And then now it's
Yeah,
getting
it
worse.
just,
Yeah, they-
with the trains and the traffic.
Yeah, they
it
just move around.
Deteriorate quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the ones on Bridge Road, you get towards the end there by the water
Oh,
tower.
God, they're terrible. And the ones on Parkview, not only do you have an angle, but you have the worst tracks you could possibly have. in
Yeah,
your-
I don't go off there.
I
I go on
try not
Hanson.
to.
I go on Hanson.
Yeah, me too, because it's a hazard walking there. So, but- Okay, any other comments on Viking walking in the community? Anything else, Sharon? Next meeting is scheduled for Monday, September 13th. 2:30. And I would ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
A second. None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Motion carried at 5:15. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks again, Rex, for all hard work.